Ever wondered how life insurance fits into your financial plan? Or why someone would buy it for a child? No? Me neither. Until I became a life insurance convert, that is. I'm Kathleen O'Hagan, digital content strategist and writer at Serenia Life and host of the Kinder Way podcast. I'm also a married mom with a mortgage, try saying that 5 times fast, navigating the same financial ups and downs as many Canadians today. So stick around. Let's figure out this financial stuff together, one episode at a time. Hello, and welcome back to the Kinder Way podcast. I'm excited to have a guest on the show with me today, my awesome boss, Angela Ricci. Angela is the VP of Marketing here at Serenia Life, a fellow foodie and a recent pickleball enthusiast. Fun fact, Angela fell in love with riding horses several years ago and ended up buying one of her own. Now she needs life insurance to make sure her kids can pay for Valentino if she were to die. Her words, not mine. Interestingly, as the mom of 2 Gen Z daughters, Angela has a first-hand understanding of the financial struggles young adults face today. But we won't be talking about that in today's episode. Instead, we're going to focus on something that personally impacted Angela in the earlier days of her career, divorce, and the unexpected need for life insurance. Just a note that Angela will be sharing insight based on her own personal experience and that this episode should not be considered a substitute for legal or financial advice. Always consult with a qualified professional for expert guidance that is tailored to your situation. Welcome to the show, Angela.
Thank you for having me, Kathleen. I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for agreeing to come on here and speak with me about such a personal topic. With about 40% of marriages ending in divorce in Canada, I think it's safe to say that this is a situation that affects many of our listeners. So let's get into it.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so before you went through your divorce, were you aware that your settlement might require both you and your ex-husband get life insurance?
Well, it definitely caught me by surprise. I think it was his lawyer that brought up the topic with my lawyer. I had questions, but as I learned more, it made sense to me. While I was being asked to purchase a Term 10 policy, we were also asking him to do the same. So that meant that if one of us died in the next 10 years and the other had to raise the children alone, there would be a tax-free cash payout to the parent that now had to cover all of the kids' expenses. The policy had to be irrevocable, which meant that we could not change the beneficiary or the amount of insurance coverage. Nothing about the policy could be changed without the written consent of the other parent. So that acts as a guarantee that the other parent will be the only person to receive the cash payout if the unfortunate situation, of one parent having to make a claim one day.
Okay, and can I ask why, you mentioned 10 years, so why Term 10 specifically?
Well, at the time, our kids were, about 10 years away from being in their early 20s, which, at that point, you expect that they will have some degree of financial independence. So it was really important for the next 10 years, but we didn't think we would need it beyond that.
Okay, that makes sense. So now that you've been through it, can you explain to our listeners why it's a necessary, I was going to say evil, but in this case, life insurance really is a necessary good, isn't it?
For sure. Once I understood that it meant that we were both protected in the, unfortunate situation where one of us were to pass away suddenly and, leave the other having to raise 2 children alone. If the kids lost one of us, the other could possibly pay down a mortgage or even free up some of the cash that was being used to make mortgage payments. You could save it in a separate account to cover kids' expenses like education, maybe help with their wedding, a car, or even help them buy a house one day, which would be a really nice, memory of the other parent. So the options are endless, but it definitely gives you some peace of mind to know that you wouldn't be left in a difficult financial situation if you lost one parent.
Okay, and what about couples who may be leaving the relationship on not so friendly terms? I imagine it must be difficult being asked to pay into a life insurance policy knowing that the payout will go to the ex. Can you tell us why you don't see this as a bad thing?
Well, I was very fortunate in my situation. We were very amicable and we had a kind and respectful relationship. And so it wasn't a difficult situation for me, but I can certainly say how difficult it would be to be making an investment in life insurance and, making monthly or annual payments to a policy that you may feel is just benefiting your ex. And if you don't have a great relationship with them or you don't trust them, then I think that that would be quite stressful. Now, I would explore options with your lawyer. So if you are, if together you've decided to open life insurance policies, that, if you could put something in your agreement that specifies what can and cannot be done with the life insurance proceeds. I don't know if this is actually possible, but I would certainly try. And in my case, there's so many people in my children's lives that love them very much, but I know for sure that, my ex-husband loves them every bit as much as I do, and so I really did trust that he would be very responsible with the proceeds and that he would ensure that it benefited the children directly.
And do you know if there are scenarios where it may not be required, like if a parent has sole custody or is even escaping an abusive situation?
Yeah, it's definitely not legally required. So, it came up in our discussion as we were working through our agreement, but it's not a legal requirement. So that it's really just what you and your ex spouse decide to do.
Okay, so this may seem like a strange question, especially if the kids are still little, but is there an option to leave that money to the children instead?
Well, it all depends on what you and your ex agree to. You can make the policy irrevocable to your ex or to the other parent or to your child directly if they are over 18. But if the children are not over 18, then you would likely have to assign a trustee so that they could ensure that the children get the money directly.
So, for listeners who may not know what a trustee is, can you explain what that term means? And also, if you had chosen to go this route, who would you have trusted to take on this role and why?
So you can work with your lawyer to set up a trust. And as part of that process, you have to designate a trustee, which means that you will name the person that will be responsible for ensuring that your beneficiaries, and in this case, it would be your children, receive the money in the trust in the way that you want them to. So if there was a life insurance payout, you may not want the children to get the money, until they're 20 or 25, or you may not want them to have a lump sum payment. You might want them to receive an annual payment for a number of years, for example. So you can specify that with the trustee and ensure that they understand your wishes so that they can ensure that that your wishes are fulfilled in the event of a life insurance payout.
Okay, and is there somebody that you would have in your life that you would have trusted to take on that role?
I think, probably, either my best friend or maybe an aunt or an uncle. It just, I think it just has to be somebody that you trust and that um, will uh, act on the instructions that you've given them.
Makes sense. All right, now off the topic of life insurance, do you have any advice for parents contemplating or currently going through a divorce?
Well, every divorce situation is different, of course, and every separation agreement is different. But here are some of the challenges that I have seen that are definitely worth avoiding. So that the separation between parents is between two adults, and they are responsible for the relationship breakdown, and it's not the fault of the children. So don't drag them through a terrible experience. It's important to be respectful to each other and come up with an agreement that is fair and balanced, that allows you to sleep at night, to know that you were a good person, and ensure that the children see that you're treating each other with kindness and respect. Making their mental health your priority and encouraging them to have a great relationship with the other parent, supporting each other as parents, even if you're no longer together. It's so important to their mental health and, for them to grow up to be confident humans. I would suggest not speaking badly about the other parent. Your kids don't see them the same way you do, and they could end up resenting you down the road if the things that you say about their other parent, make them feel sad or make them feel bad. I worked with a collaborative lawyer myself, and she was extremely helpful on this front. I feel really confident that we set a good example for our kids on how to deal with a difficult situation in a healthy and productive way. Now, of course, this only makes sense if everyone is safe and secure. If you're not in a situation like I was in, then you have to decide right what the right path forward is for you.
That's some pretty good advice. Thank you. And now it's that time in the show where we sprinkle a little bit of kindness into our listeners' day. Can you share a time when you witnessed or heard about an act of kindness that moved you?
Yeah, so I was gardening recently and I came across a painted rock in my garden that my daughter had actually painted during COVID. And it was one that we kept and put in our own garden. But I think as many families did during COVID, we would go on daily walks. And we started noticing painted rocks along the path. And some of them were tucked into trees or, they were a little bit hidden, but it became a really fun exercise for us to find all of the painted rocks through the path that we took on our walks every day. And my daughter actually started painting rocks as well. And we were very thoughtful about where we placed them along the path that we took. And I just thought this was such a lovely act of kind of bringing the community together. We all felt so isolated during COVID, and it was just kind of a nice way to feel connected to the community when you weren't necessarily able to see people every day.
That brings me back. We have a little collection of those rocks in our front garden as well that my son discovered during those years. So great example. Love it. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for having me, Kathleen.
Now, I know that divorce isn't really a topic that comes to mind when you think life insurance, but it's important for parents going through this transition to be in the know about many of the things Angela shared today, so I'm glad we had the chance to shine a light on this topic. I've also linked to an article called Life Insurance After a Divorce in the description for anyone who'd like to do further reading. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of the Kinder Way podcast. Hope you'll join me next time.